Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing well, staying safe wherever you are on this Thursday evening over here in the UK at the time of recording. So, we're only a couple of days away now from Double or Nothing on Saturday's AEW second annual Double or Nothing. It's going to take place at Daly's Place. We're not going to have any fans, shall we say, in attendance. We'll have some wrestlers at ringside, I'm sure, like we've seen in the recent Dynamites. We're going to have a prediction video on the channel tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed and you're here for that. But today we're going to talk about one of the stories coming out of Dynamite and going into AEW Double or Nothing on Saturday. And that's this Elite versus Inner Circle storyline. But we're going to focus more on the Elite, specifically what is going on with Hangman Page, with the Elite, with the Bucks, with Kenny Omega, all of that stuff. It's a storyline that they've been sowing the seeds for a really long time now, it feels. So this all started, I want to say, at the end of last year, at the start of this year. So you think we're in late May now, close to June, so 6 months of storyline planning has gone into this one. And what happened so far is that Hangman Adam Page decided things weren't going for him. He wasn't getting the wins that he wanted in AEW. Of course, he was a challenger for the AEW World Championship to crown the inaugural champion at All Out last year, but was unsuccessful and lost to Chris Jericho. And then after that, his career in AEW kind of floundered. He didn't really do anything that much of note, didn't do really anything that big. He had a feud with Pac, and that was about it. So he decided to distance himself from the Elite, no longer consider himself part of the Elite with Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, and the Young Bucks. He said he was going to do his own thing, and ever since then, he's taken on this darker tone, this darker character, this careless character, where he's drinking a lot at most of the times on Dynamites. Leading up to this, we've seen him with a beer in his hands, maybe something stronger, or whiskey, who knows. But he's been drinking a lot. He's been showing an attitude that he couldn't care less about the Elite, and quite literally sometimes he has distanced himself from the Elite in that he just hasn't been close to them. Sometimes when they're in a shot together, he'll just distance himself, take himself away. And a lot of people speculated at the time this was the start of a slow heel turn for Hangman Adam Page. But one thing has happened during this whole process of Hangman Page becoming a different character, and that is he's got unbelievably over in the process. The crowd, if there was one, when there was one, absolutely adores him. They love him. They love this different character, this DTA. It's almost a Stone Cold style character, and I don't want to, get people frustrated and annoyed with that one. They'll be like, oh, he's not Stone Cold Steve Austin. No, he's not. Hangman Adam Page is not Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm not saying he's a draw like Steve Austin. I'm saying he's showing some of the same personality traits as a Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yes, obviously the drinking, but it's more of this lone wolf, don't trust anyone, don't have any friends, almost paranoid, southern, anti-establishment, almost like a heel babyface in a way. It's difficult to describe. Now, like I said, originally I think the plan, or it would appear that the plan was originally for this to be a slow turn for Hangman Adam Page. He would turn into a heel, he would feud with the Elite, this would elevate him to the next level and get him to that main event status that AEW wants him to be in. But like I said, this turn, or this slow turn, has almost done the opposite and turned him into an even bigger babyface. I would say he's arguably one of the hottest superstars on the AEW roster right now. I would say he's probably up there with Cody Rhodes in being the most popular member of the Elite. If you still consider him part of the Elite, he is at the weekend on the Elite's team. And during this process, he won the tag team championships with Kenny Omega on the Jericho Cruise. They beat SCU. And some people thought, okay, well, maybe, it's going to have Hangman turn on Kenny Omega at some point. They even teased it at AEW Revolution in February after the match when they defeated the Young Bucks. You had Hangman Page tease the buckshot lariat to Kenny Omega. But also in this match, and this is the thing I want to talk about, also in this match, you had the tease of maybe Hangman Page isn't the one to turn heel. Maybe the one to turn heel is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Now, why do I say that? I think that's the way they could go with this one. I really do. Like I said, I don't think they envisaged Hangman Page getting this popular as a babyface, doing this darker character. And I think it's not the obvious choice. I think it's something different. I don't think the fans would see it coming. And with a heel elite, you really have a different vibe and a different storytelling element that AEW could utilize to their best of their ability there. I wouldn't even at this point almost consider Cody Rhodes being part of the elite anymore, because he's been doing his own thing for the longest time now, hasn't he, really? You look back at his recent feuds. He's got his feud with Lance Archer and Jake Roberts at the moment for the TNT Championship. Prior to that, you had his feud with MJF. Prior to that, you had his feud with Chris Jericho. That kind of did involve the elite slightly, because you had the Inner Circle and the elite, which kind of has spun off into where we're going now for Double or Nothing, and where we were going originally for Blood and Guts. But prior to that, you had his feud with Shawn Spears, and he was on his own during that time. So Cody Rhodes is definitely doing his own thing. He's got his own singles career. He's off doing whatever he's going to do. I wouldn't even at this point consider him a main player when it comes to the elite. So if you did have Kenny Omega and the Bucks turn on Hangman Page, which I think is definitely an option they could do at the weekend at Double or Nothing, it opens up a whole range of scenarios which we didn't think were possible, or we haven't even thought about exploring when it comes to AEW. If you've got Kenny Omega as the heel leader of the Elite, Cody Rhodes could be absolutely baffled by this. What is Kenny Omega doing? What are the Young Bucks doing? How could they turn their backs on Hangman Page? This leads into a Cody Rhodes versus Kenny Omega feud. Now, that is a feud that I'd really enjoy seeing. They teased it briefly in Ring of Honor and New Japan over the leader of the Bullet Club status, but that never really happened in the end. It kind of fizzled out. And I think Cody Rhodes versus Kenny Omega, two stars that have name recognition value, two of the biggest stars in AEW, two EVPs. You can even get really, if you want to get really in deep with it, about ownership of the company, EVP status. There's certainly stories to tell there, and I think that would be really interesting to see. Now, also, at Saturday at Double or Nothing, you also have Matt Hardy on the Elites team in the Stadium Stampede match. So if Omega and the Bucks were to turn on Hangman Adam Page, we're not going to have a heel Matt Hardy, I don't think. So that could lead into a Kenny Omega versus Matt Hardy feud. We've even seen Kenny Omega and Matt Hardy teaming up quite recently, quite frequently on AEW Dynamite in the absence of Hangman Adam Page. So they already have a bit of history, and Kenny Omega's not afraid to go over the top, go theatrical. He's one of the most theatrical wrestlers on the AEW roster. He's not scared to think outside the box and do something different. And when you say outside of the box and when you say do something different, the first person that comes to my mind is Matt Hardy. It's almost well known at this point that Matt Hardy's got kind of free range to do what he wants in terms of his character in AEW, in terms of the broken Matt Hardy character, in terms of the Damascus, easy for me to say, character. And he's also spoken about a desire to become one of the most layered characters in the professional wrestling business. And I think a feud with Kenny Omega could certainly do that. You also have to think about Matt Hardy's physical limitations as well at this point in his career. I think a Kenny Omega, someone of his standard, could really, really help Matt Hardy hide those negatives and extenuate those positives, which are the storytelling elements of Matt Hardy's character. So I think that would certainly help Kenny Omega, who I think, look, Kenny Omega, when he signed with AEW, it was a foregone conclusion, but there was a lot of wondering, is Kenny Omega going to sign with WWE? Because Kenny Omega was the guy in New Japan. Obviously, you've got, the Okadas and the Natos, but in terms of the top foreign talent, the top gaijin, that was Kenny Omega. New Japan are still upset that Kenny Omega left New Japan and went to AEW and signed an exclusive deal with AEW. Even though you have Kenny Omega and Cody and the Bucks have clauses in their contract that they could work for New Japan if they wanted, Kenny Omega isn't working with New Japan anytime soon. There's still heat there. Kenny Omega has reportedly still had issues even getting into the country of Japan due to the heat with New Japan, with them pulling strings. So that shows how much of a big loss Omega was to them, and that shows how much of a big star Kenny Omega is. And whilst I think he is gradually getting better and better and better in AEW, has he lived up to the hype? Maybe not. Maybe it was impossible to do that. Maybe it was impossible. Maybe those standards were too high. You think of the 6-star matches, the 5-star matches, the best bout machine, whatever you want to call him. Maybe those standards were too high, and they've even incorporated it into storylines. Has Kenny Omega lost a step? Is this the Kenny from Japan? maybe if the Bucks and Kenny Omega turn on Hangman Page at the weekend, we start to see this. I haven't done what I wanted to do in AEW. This allows me to become the old Kenny Omega. This allows me to become the Kenny Omega that was selling out the Tokyo Dome. This allows me to become the Kenny Omega that gets a 6-star match. This is the best bout machine. This is the cleaner comes back to AEW. Maybe finally we get that true main event level talent and that real next level stuff from Kenny Omega that we were seeing in New Japan. Maybe this is a way to facilitate that. So I certainly think that opens a lot of scenarios when it comes to Kenny Omega, but he wouldn't be the only person turning heel. Obviously, in this scenario, you would have Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks turning heel by attacking Hangman Page and costing him the match at the weekend. And that would also open up the opportunity for finally the Bucks to win the AEW Tag Team Championships. You think at the moment, the current AEW World Tag Team Champions are Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. Now, Hangman Page and Omega did defeat the Bucks at AEW Revolution, but like I said, there were 2 heel turns teased in there, one by Hangman and one by the remaining members of the Elite. So if you had Omega and the Bucks turn on Hangman Page, you can then have a match on Dynamite where it's the Bucks versus Omega and Hangman Page for the tag team titles, and it almost becomes a 3-on-1 handicap match. They beat down Hangman Page, and the Bucks become the tag team champions. Then with an Elite that is just has 3 members in being the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, the Bucks are the tag team champions, and you have this new vicious heel leader in Kenny Omega being pushed up to the main event scene and, more importantly, the AEW World Championship scene to challenge Jon Moxley. Now, why is that important? Wow. When you think about the first feud that really Omega had coming into AEW, that was against who? That's right, Jon Moxley. They had their back and forth moments, their brawls on AEW Dynamite on the first episode. Moxley paradigm shifted Omega through a glass table. You had moments like that, and that all culminated with the match at Full Gear in Baltimore, where you had the lights out match. You had the absolute craziness, the blood, the barbed wire, the glass, all of that stuff. The match that AEW in the end actually received a fine from the Baltimore Athletic State Commission due to a former WCW employee. Let's not go into that. What a snitch. But having a heel Omega that is hot and fresh off of a heel turn at Double or Nothing could lead into a Jon Moxley versus Omega rematch. And when would that be? That would be at AEW's biggest show of the year, All Out. It'd be All Out 2, almost All In 3, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But it facilitates the Omega and Moxley rematch. So I think that could all go into place. Now, obviously, on my part, this is just speculation. I don't have any insider news when it comes to this. If this was planned, they'd certainly be keeping it close to the vest. So I don't think it's a case of having insider information or anything like that. All I'm trying to say is, for me, it makes quite a lot of logical sense, but it's still different at the same time and something that I don't think the crowd may be fully expecting. And like I said, I think even though Hangman might have been, the original plan might have been for Hangman to turn heel, that certainly would imply that was the case with this distance himself from the Elite, the darker character, the drinking, all of that stuff. But Hangman is over. This would be, in my opinion, it'd just be a terrible idea to turn Hangman heel. It doesn't make any sense because he's so popular. I think even if they tried to turn him heel, it's fortunate the crowd aren't there. But if the crowd were there, if Hangman did turn on Omega and the Bucks, I think it'd almost be a Becky Lynch scenario in that a heel turn actually almost turns you into a babyface, an even bigger babyface, because they so desperately want to see Hangman Page thrive and succeed. He's one of the most entertaining aspects of AEW Dynamite. He's one of the most entertaining wrestlers on the AEW roster. So I think turning him heel would just only make him more popular. And I don't think that would do any favors for Omega and the Bucks. It would just make them look stupid, if anything. So I don't think that is the way they should go. I think they should have the swerve in having Omega and the Bucks turn on Hangman Page. Like I said, Hangman Page is AEW Steve Austin for me. I know I once compared Jon Moxley to Steve Austin, but I really do think Hangman has that Steve Austin feel for of AEW. That I don't give a crap. I don't trust anyone. I'm paranoid. I'm drinking. All of that stuff. That hey, look, the general public and the AEW audience certainly can relate to. He gets the biggest ovation on the roster and has had some of the best matches in AEW. And like I said, when you think back to Kenny Omega, look, Kenny Omega's a huge star, and in my opinion, he just hasn't come across as that big a star since he started in AEW. And I think that AEW, look, if they can get Kenny Omega back to that level that he was at in New Japan, where he was the hottest wrestler in the industry, without a shadow of a doubt. People were begging for him to come to WWE. People were begging for him to have matches with Seth Rollins, etc., etc., etc. If they can get that Kenny Omega firing on all cylinders in AEW, then it's a massive win for the company. It's a massive win because Omega's, some of the matches he can have, he might not have the biggest personality in the world, but a heel turn may be the way to facilitate that. That may be the way to get that personality out, to get that over-the-top personality out. And then it frees up the Bucks to challenge for the tag team titles. It frees up Omega to challenge for the world title. And it also frees up the Young Bucks. I was thinking this as well. If we're going with the assumption that the Bucks and Kenny Omega turn on Hangman Page at the weekend, then does this lead to a heel Young Bucks versus babyface Revival / FTR feud if the Revival / FTR signs with All Elite Wrestling? I think it does. I think if the Revival, many are just working with this assumption that when the Revival debut with AEW, when FTR, let's call them FTR, when FTR debut with AEW, they're going to be heels because it's the antithesis of the style of AEW, isn't it? It's the no flips, just fists. I know that's a WWE catchphrase, but that's the kind of tag team they are. They're this old school, cut the ring off, nothing flashy. They can do flashy, but they don't want to do that. They're old school tag team wrestling. So with them coming into a company that does have a lot of high spots, especially a team like the Young Bucks, who a lot of the time they're criticized because their matches don't have a lot of psychology to them, they're just high spots, you would think that would have the babyface Bucks versus the heel FTR. But maybe we switch it the other way around. Maybe the fans are so desperate to see old school, old style professional wrestling tag teams that FTR are the baby faces in this one, and the Bucks, fresh off this heel turn on Hangman Page, they're actually the heels. And they're saying that FTR, you just can't keep up with us. You don't know where the industry's going. And FTR, let's be honest, they would be popular, and the crowd would be so happy to see them if they were there. Because we've for the longest time we've wanted to see the Bucks versus FTR. For the longest time we've wanted to see FTR actually have good tag team matches like they did once in NXT. You'd want to see that again, and I think there would almost be a relief of, yes, finally they're back. Finally we can see good tag team wrestling. So it could work. But like I said, all of that is purely hypothetical. The way I would have it is you get to the finish of the match, you have maybe Chris Jericho in the ring, or wherever it is. There is going to be a ring on the halfway line of the stadium, I believe. But the way I would have it, I would have the ring on the halfway line of the stadium. You then have, in the ring, Chris Jericho. He's on his hands and knees. He's begging the Elite because they've surrounded him. You have Omega, you have the Bucks, and you have Hangman Page. Matt Hardy is off somewhere else. He's been thrown off or something. I don't know. But then what happens? You have Omega and the Bucks just beat the hell out of Hangman, lay him out, leave him laying. Jericho gets the victory, and the now heel Elite walk off, and you have Hangman Page as the ultimate babyface, and you have the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega as the ultimate heels, and the switch that nobody saw coming is done, and then suddenly you have a fire heel stable that can still feud with the Inner Circle. We saw it with the Wyatt family and the Shield. The Shield weren't baby faces at the time. Two heel teams, they can still go off great. It doesn't matter. There doesn't need to be a baby face and a heel in certain scenarios, and that could still work. But to be honest, this should be, in my opinion, the bookmark for the Elite versus Inner Circle feud, even until we have the Blood and Guts match later on. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Saturday. I'm excited for this match in particular. I think this is the real main event. I really do. But like I said, we'll get into all of that at the predictions video tomorrow. But what do you think? Would you like to see a Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the Elite, turn heel on Hangman Page this Saturday? Let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or you can go onto our profile, click subscribe there. Make sure you click the bell for notifications, or if you wait a few more seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Make sure you subscribe to us or follow us on all of our social media platforms on the screen right now. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak for you again very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.